everybody, and welcome to my YouTube page. And so the topic of this video is going to be reverse engineering. So now I noticed that when you start becoming a coach that you've gone through your training, you're all jazzed, and the next thing you do is you're going to have to start holding your own challenge groups. And you're kind of like, okay, what do I do with that? So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to have to pick a, set date when that challenge group is going to start, and then you're going to kind of reverse engineer things. Now, as an A-type personality, I am all about the dates and the starting and the endpoints and all that kind of stuff. So that was one of the first things that I kind of grasped onto as a coach, and I love structure. And let me tell you right now, if you're not that type of person, that's totally okay, but you're definitely going to need to kind of get this routine down just in the beginning so that you're just aware of how you're going to have to tackle and approach challenge groups and inviting and just that whole process. That does take a little bit of time, okay? So let's take, for instance, my next challenge group. My next challenge group is going to open up. I'm going to set a date. So that's November 9th. Now, when I say I'm going to open my group up November 9th, that means that I am going to start inviting people, and I make that big announcement. I have a challenge group and now it's open, and I'm accepting and I'm adding people throughout that entire week. Okay. And then the following week after that would be preseason for me, okay? And I still add people during preseason, but essentially I like to have people in the group and ready to go, and then having their merchandise with them by preseason. Now we can add people during preseason because you can stream Beachbody on demand. So, with your program that you've purchased. So it's kind of like a little bit more leeway. You're gonna have to gauge that on your own. But for lack of time in here, let's just say my next challenge group will open on November 9th. All right. And that's kind of just my inviting, adding people to that group and saying, hey, I'm adding you to this group, chill out until the next week where we'll start preseason. All right. And you can gauge that for yourself if you want that to be your preseason week or not, to each his own. But just for a lack of structure and lack of time here, that's what we're going to say. Okay. So the group opens on November 9th. Now we're going to count back 2.5 weeks. All right. So let's just say, and we're going to round up, that's now October 19th. Okay. So now this week is about 2.5 weeks back, and now this is when you're going to start saying, hey, I'm going to have a challenge group in November. You start kind of talking about your challenge group. You start doing more of those invites and having those kinds of posts, like the value of a challenge group, what you yourself have been getting out of your challenge group. And that's when you kind of start boosting up those posts about challenge groups and all the benefits and the value. And also stick to the value. I mean, we're all about the physical transformation, but if you stick to the value of something, people are going to be a little bit more open to the cost. All right. And when you express all that value and what the end picture is and the feelings that you get from it, that's really what people are going to relate to. All right, and share your story. Biggest number one, share your story. So we're back here on October 19th, and you start posting, okay? You start amping up your posts about your challenge groups and all that kind of stuff. Now that week passes. Now that's when you kind of start also private messaging. A lot of people don't do private messaging, but I'm a big advocate of it. Why? It's because not everybody on my Facebook sees my Facebook feed. Not everybody looks at my like page, okay? Some people are annoyed by it. But I will then start private messaging. Here's the reason why we do 2.5 weeks back, is because when I start messaging people, let's say that October 19th through the 25th, okay, it's purely reconnecting with people. I don't really care about how long it was before I saw them, how the last message was. It's purely reconnecting. And some people won't even look at their Facebook for like a week. And then they'll be like, oh my gosh, I finally saw you. So a week's already gone. Okay. So that's why I start 2.5 weeks back. Okay. And you just reconnect. That's all you have to do. Just reconnect. Okay. Don't even talk about Beachbody. Just, if you're being proof your product works and you're being consistent with your 3 posting a day to 5 posts a day on your Facebook, when they start talking back to you, they're going to see the consistency, and they're already going to kind of get an idea of, well, what's this coaching? What is these challenge groups? What are those things? Okay. So no worries if you're doing all those. So let's say now that first week is gone and now you're into, October 26th through the 27th, okay? So now what you're going to do is, now the next follow-up, you're just going to start following up with all those messages, those beginning reconnecting messages, and develop that sense of just conversation and build up your friendships again, build up that trust. So that's all you're doing in that essential 2 weeks, okay, at that point. Now, here's the kicker. Now, you're in November 1st, okay? Now remember, the group opens November 9th. November 1st is when you start bringing up and messaging about challenge groups, okay? By that time, your conversation probably already has leaded into, oh, well, how are you? I'm doing great. Well, what are you doing? Where are you at in life? Blah, blah, blah. And you've probably already kind of hinted at, well, I have this coaching stuff going on too. And they're like, what's this coaching stuff, right? It's very relaxed. It's not aggressive. It's not salesy. It's not anything. You're inviting them to basically kind of reconnect and then look at your Facebook page. That's kind of what's happening. And then through your consistency, they'll see what you're doing and all that kind of stuff. All right. So basically what I end up doing is, now we're that week right before the group is open to start, inviting people or adding people to it. For that whole week, I start messaging and I start asking about challenge groups. I start asking people, well, hey, I'm opening up a group. It's a fitness accountability group if you want to use accountability, or a challenge group. And then I just briefly say, I'm starting to get my group together for November. Would you like any details on it? And I actually noticed that when I started saying, would you like details on it, I got more responses back. I used to say, I would like to invite you to the group and see if you're interested. And I still got responses, but I get more kind of follow-up responses about it when I say, I was just curious if you would like details on it. Surprising. They actually want details, and they're like, okay, yeah. And so that kind of gets your foot in the door with just starting to talk about, again, the value of what a group is. And again, the reason why I start a week before I even open the group is because now you're going to start talking about the challenge group in itself, and then what it is, what it all entails, and all that kind of stuff. And now they're going to need that time to process, probably that whole week, to kind of process what it is that they're going to get involved in. All right, so now let's get to November 9th. Boom! You're make that announcement. My challenge group is now open and adding people throughout, blah, blah, blah. Don't put a deadline on it, because again, you don't really know. Once you put a deadline on something, you kind of notice that people will wait until that deadline, and then they'll message you after the deadline, and then they're like, oh, wow, I really wanted to join, but I couldn't because I missed the deadline. So I'll tell you how to handle that in just a second. So don't put a deadline. Just say group is now open for putting people in. And then basically by that time, you probably have maybe a couple people already totally all about it. You sign them up, you put them in the group, you tell them, hang out, no worries. We're going to start preseason next week. They're going to get their stuff. They can now stream it if they would like to look at the programs and do all that kind of whatnot. So by that time, let's say it is the following week. Okay, so now we're at November, let's see here, November 16th. So now you have your, say here, you're now having preseason. Now, the reason why I say you got to gauge it at however you want to gauge it is because preseason is essentially the week where you could say, I've cut people off, your deadline was the day before, so let's say the 15th. So from November 9th to the 15th, you were adding people, and then you said, okay, my deadline is the 15th. I will say that, and then essentially, again, you're going to have those people that are like, oh, shoot, I really wanted to join, but I missed it. Well, and here comes in the saving grace of the preseason. I usually say, well, actually, and I said, I could still let you come in because it's preseason. We have a preseason week where people are just getting in the mindset and whatnot, and actually, you'll still be in time to start your workouts in a week. So then essentially I might still add a couple people to preseason. I try not to go past the Friday of preseason just because I want people to be able to get their, product at least sometimes. Sometimes it's 21-day fix and you need your containers, But I definitely let people know they're still getting their 21 days. Okay, they're getting all that stuff in. But now I've allotted all this time for follow-up, for people to really understand the value. I don't have any stress. And it definitely does narrow down the field for myself. So again, reverse engineer, guys, pick that ending date. okay, to actually open up your group. Make it towards the beginning of the month, because the further and further you get, it gets closer and closer to those deadlines of success points. So pick your ending date, and then count back 2.5 weeks. Start inviting, start messaging, start reconnecting, period. Okay. And let it just flow. And you'll be surprised if you're being consistent, and if you're following up with people, and you're building really great connections with people, and really putting them first before yourself. You're going to see a lot of positive feedback, and a lot of great just hitting Success Club points like in the very beginning of the month. So you don't have to like silent ninja that stuff at the very end and be stressed out and bogged down. Okay. And so yeah, and then hopefully if you start that process again, so at the end of, like, if this group opens up November 9th and it starts its process towards the end of that month again, I'll just set my next date, I'll count back 2.5 weeks, and then I'll start the process over again. Okay, cool. So I hope this video helps you guys reverse engineer everything. That's kind of what I start doing. I'll do another one just kind of about the coaching opportunity and how you start getting involved in that stuff too, and inviting and messaging. Hope this totally helps you. I hope there's some wonderful tidbits in there that you can take away.